Welcome to the Compliance Perspectives Podcast. I'm Adam Turtletaub from the Society of Corporate Compliance and Ethics and Healthcare Compliance Association. Joining us today from London is Gabor Sulyok. Gabor is Global Head of Commercial and Healthcare Compliance at BeyondTech. And also joining us from there is Luciane Mallmann, an experienced Senior Compliance Counsel. The two of them recently wrote an article for Compliance and Ethics Professional magazine in which they argued for a people-centered ethics and compliance framework. Gabor, what does that mean in practice?
Yeah, thank you, Adam. It's a very important question. I think it's critical now for an organization to focus on people when it comes to designing and sustaining their compliance program. We sometimes forget about it, to be very honest, that ethics and compliance always happen through people. And also, in my opinion, effectiveness of a compliance program is no longer about only adherence to basically external regulations or industry standards, but also in terms of like shaping the culture, including culture of ethics with the focus on people. So that's why focusing on human-centered program is a must for a modern organization. It improves employee engagement. It clearly supports their decision making when it comes to ambiguous decision, and also at the end it ensures adherence to ethical and legal standards. So in my opinion, in practice, every program element within our compliance program should be focused on people and centered around people from design to execution. For example, how we establish our organizational structure, how we make sure that compliance teams are visible, our agenda is visible, how we make sure that there is a clear compliance leadership when it comes to ethics and our program. Also important from a policy framework perspective, we need to make sure that the policy framework is people focused, how we educate, how we create awareness, and also how we maintain accountability. Yes.
We are very much in a people-focused business. Now, in your article, you talked about several elements. First is center users in the ethics and compliance program. Luciane, can you tell us about that?
Sure, that's a great topic, Adam. I think there are three main topics that I'd like just to focus on about the center users in the ethics compliance program. One of them is the speak up culture. So we talk a lot about speak up culture, what that means in practice. And then we also talk about have a friendly policy in place, have a good explanation about confidentiality in your policy, and then encourage everyone to speak up. But I think also it's really important for the compliance teams to work alongside the investigations team, right? To make sure that at the end of the day, it's all about people. That should be focused on people. Your investigations team are very much focused interviewing people, you speak with people across the company, get feedback. And then your compliance team, just to make sure that the policies are going to work in practice and everything is very clear to everyone across the company, they should work alongside. I think that's a very good, effective way to encourage the speak up culture and make sure that the investigation team, they're very well equipped to receive all these reports coming from a good speak up culture, speak up policy in place. Also, I think it's important to have transparency, a culture of transparency, empathy. At the end of the day, when you're doing your trainings, when you deliver live trainings, mainly, it's really important to talk about ethical dilemmas, the power of storytelling. I've had experience in the past when I was delivering live trainings, and then everyone, they're not very, very switched on my training. And then when I start talking about this storytelling and then real life case across the company, I could tell everyone switch it on immediately, and then they start asking lots of questions. And then also the ethical decision making process. That means have no different opinions across the company. The importance of diverse opinions is very crucial to ensure that all these opinions are valid, included in the decision making process. So collecting opinion from colleagues across different regions, because they have different challenges and different cultures, is really important to bring it all together for a more centered users program.
Now, Gabor, you advocate for establishing a strong foundation for a human-focused program. What makes up the foundation?
Yes, and this is very, very important because I said people-focused program should capture basically the entire kind of like program element from start till the end, actually. But I would highlight four pillars which I think it's important to talk about. One is code of conduct, code of ethics. That's very important that our code of ethics or code of conduct are easy to understand and accessible, comprehensive and simple. I do see a long, long, long code of ethics out there still, which is very difficult to relate and manage from an associate perspective. And I also think from a content perspective, code of ethics and the principles and the commitments in it should be relatable to our employees. Without that, it's very difficult to engage with them. Also, I prefer principle-based kind of like guidance within that, so that they help navigating through ambiguous situations. Um, I do think that our code of conduct should be well promoted, actively communicated, and well branded across the organization. And I see a very good practice if the code of conduct is linked to our core values or the core values of the organization, because then it's no longer a compliance document, but it's a document for the entire organization. So code of conduct is the first. The second level, if I can say that, we should have a well-designed policy framework in place so that our program is human focused. We should have a very clear, concise, and user-friendly document system and language within the framework. We should avoid, legal jargon, for example. We should simplify complex terminology, and we should really focus to explain core principles and expectations rather than like a legal document, if you like. I also do think less is more in here. So rather, I would keep my policy framework short and tight so that it's really relatable to our partners and teams. I would also highlight the importance of involving our stakeholders and key business partners in terms of the co-creation and co-design our processes and basically the framework, because that also would highlight inclusiveness and also kind of like make sure that we get inputs from our diverse community, which makes then the whole policy framework relatable and also basically working. The third element, education program. I don't want to use the term training program because I think it's more about training. We have to continuously create awareness and human focused education program so that our overall compliance program is well understood and well executed. I think we should use practical real world scenarios to make the bridge and between theory and practice. We also should tailor the content to specific roles and responsibilities rather than just do general kind of like compliance and ethics training. I think it's always important to tailor made it. And I think it's very important that the leadership demonstrate very strong commitments around education program, because at the end of the day, if we don't do that, it again clearly sees another compliance initiative. However, if the leadership and it comes from the top as well, then people can relate much better. And I think it's important not only from a training and education perspective, but in terms of measurement of our program, is that we really focus on outcomes and behavior change rather than, I think, only, for example, completion rate of the program. And the fourth element is basically about how we promote our compliance program. What is our communication strategy? Because I do think a well-executed communication strategy is a key to bring our program closer to our associates or our teams. And actually, if we could communicate consistently, like brand messages and our key compliance messages, then I think it's very helpful when it comes to kind of like when it comes to awareness and around our program.
Up until now on this podcast, we've talked a lot about how you communicate to the workforce at whole, but in your article, you also talk about tone at the top and how important it is. You advocate for transparency and leadership commitment. How does that happen?
Yes, I think that that's a very important topic when it comes to tone at the top of the companies. Uh, we all know that a very clear and consistent message from the senior leaders is crucial for an effective compliance program, and then to ensure that good ethical behavior in place within the organization. However, it's we need just to pay more attention in terms of how we're going to promote this tone from the top. Where I've seen in the past, in one of my previous roles, is that the senior leaders, they really support, encourage compliance behind the scenes, doing a lot of efforts, more in the background to encourage compliance. But there was not being promoted across the company. People are not really aware that they have been doing all these efforts for compliance. So it's important to promote and then to be part of your communications, your ethics week. If you could invite your senior leaders to open up your ethics day or ethics week, that would be a great way to encourage that tone from the top, and then also to engage with your senior leaders. One of the things I've done in the past was to work very closely with my senior leaders, regional senior leaders, because I appreciate sometimes people work for very large companies, and then they can be very challenged to put all this strategy in place. So you can ask your compliance local teams to work alongside your senior leaders to, for example, encourage them to complete the compliance training as soon as possible, because you can leverage from that fact that your leaders have completed the training. Wow, you should do that as soon as possible. That's a very great way to encourage everyone across the company and say, look, our leaders are very supportive about compliance. And then also have visibility, internal, external, because compliance is something to be very proud of. It's a very competitive advantage. So, you should do like more communications and at public events, at annual general meetings. Please ask for a place to ask for your leaders to talk a little bit about compliance, just like just a few minutes, just to encourage everyone to engage with our policies or procedures, and then a very ethical behavior, and most importantly, the core values at the company.
Finally, Gabor, in the article you speak to accountability and enforcement. Many organizations struggle deeply with that. What's the solution?
Yeah, I mean, it's very good question, and one of my favorite topics, to be honest, because I think it's interesting from a culture standpoint. What I often experienced, which I call it accountability paradox, is that if we're pushing accountability and empowering our teams or employees to make decision in certain ambiguous situation, that can lead to a more risk-averse and conservative kind of like culture and solution, which obviously we don't want. So I think just one advice to address this, I think we should really work closely with our business teams to support them and doing compliance advisory so that they don't feel alone and they are not getting to another extreme in terms of risk averse culture. And yeah, this is very interesting.
Well, this conversation has been very interesting. Luciane, Gabor, thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. Thank you for contributing the article to Compliance and Ethics Professional. And finally, I want to thank all of you for taking the time to listen. I'm Adam Turtletaub from SCCE and HCCA. I hope we're able to expand your compliance perspective.